The Three Little Pigs, the power of hard work and perseverance. Once upon a time, there were three little pig brothers who decided to build their houses to protect themselves from the cold and the dangers of the forest. First, the first pig was very hasty. He wanted to finish quickly so he could play and rest. So he built his house out of straw, very fast, without worrying whether it would be strong or not. The second pig was a bit more careful, but he also wanted to finish soon. He built his house out of wood, stronger than straw, but without reinforcing the walls. The third pig, on the other hand, believed that doing something well required time and effort. He decided to build his house out of bricks, laying each one carefully, using mortar, and working every day until it was finished. While his brothers laughed and played, he kept on building. One day, a very hungry wolf appeared in the forest. Seeing the first straw house, he knocked on the door. Little pig, let me in." The pig replied, "No way." So the wolf said, "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." He blew once, twice, 3 times, and the straw house flew into the air. The pig ran to his brother's wooden house. The wolf followed and said at the wooden house door, little pigs, let me in." "No way," they answered. The wolf threatened, "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." He blew with all his strength, and with a few breaths the wooden house collapsed. The 2 pigs ran to their hard-working brother's brick house. When the wolf reached the brick house, he repeated his threat. Little pigs, let me in." But no matter how hard he huffed and puffed, the house did not budge. He tried to push, tried to pound, but nothing worked. The house was solid and safe. Tired and frustrated, the wolf gave up and went away. The 2 hasty pigs learned their lesson. "Now we understand, brother. It's worth working hard and doing things with care." The hard-working pig smiled and said, "When we do something well, the result lasts forever." Moral of the story: effort, patience, and dedication always bring rewards. Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack was a kind boy who lived with his mother in a very simple little house in the countryside. They were very poor and had only a cow named Whitey, who gave them milk to sell. One day, the cow was already old and no longer gave milk. Jack's mother sighed and said, "Jack, we need to sell Whitey at the market. That way we can buy bread and groceries." Jack agreed and set off with the cow along the dirt road. While walking, he met a strange man, dressed in a colorful coat and a pointy hat. "Boy, where are you going with that cow?" asked the man. "I'm going to sell her at the market," answered Jack. The man smiled and pulled 5 shiny beans out of his pocket. "These aren't ordinary beans. They're magical. If you plant them, you'll see wonders. I'll trade them for your cow." Curious and innocent, Jack accepted the offer. He handed over the cow and happily returned home, showing the beans to his mother. But she was furious. "Beans? You traded our cow for beans? Oh, Jack, what are we going to eat now?" She snatched the beans from his hand and threw them out the window. Sad, Jack went to bed without dinner. The next morning, when he opened the window, he got a huge surprise. Overnight, the beans had sprouted and grown all the way up to the sky. A gigantic beanstalk rose endlessly, piercing through the clouds. With his heart full of courage, Jack decided to climb. He climbed, and when he reached the top, he found a gigantic castle. Curious, he went through the gates and was amazed to see enormous tables filled with bread, cheese, and meat. Suddenly, he heard heavy footsteps that made the ground shake. Thump, thump, thump! It was a huge giant who entered the hall, sniffing the air. "Fee-fee-fo-fum! I smell the blood of a human boy." Frightened, Jack hid behind a flower pot. Soon after, the giant demanded his magic hen. "Lay a golden egg," he ordered. And to Jack's amazement, the hen laid a glowing golden egg. When the giant fell asleep, Jack seized the chance. He grabbed the hen and ran down the beanstalk. His mother couldn't believe her eyes. Now they had a hen that laid golden eggs. But Jack's curiosity was great. A few days later, he decided to climb again. In the castle, he saw the giant playing a magic harp that sang and made sweet music all by itself. He waited until the giant fell asleep and tried to take the harp, but the harp cried out, "Help, my master!" The giant woke up furious and started chasing Jack. The boy rushed down the beanstalk as fast as he could, with the giant right behind him, climbing down too. "Mother, quick, help me!" shouted Jack. Together, they grabbed an axe and began to chop the beanstalk. With a loud crash, the beanstalk split. and the giant fell, disappearing forever. From that day on, Jack and his mother lived happily. They had the hen that laid golden eggs, the magic harp, and they never went hungry again. And Jack learned that courage and cleverness can turn even the smallest boy into a great hero. Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood lived with her mother in a small house near a large forest. She was cheerful, curious, and loved helping with the chores at home. One sunny morning, her mother called her and said, "My dear grandma is feeling a bit sick. I want you to take this basket with cake and juice to her." Little Red Riding Hood smiled and replied, "Of course, Mommy, I'll do it with pleasure." But her mother warned her seriously, "Go straight along the path, don't talk to strangers, and don't stop in the forest. It's very important." "Don't worry, Mommy, I promise," said the girl confidently. Little Red Riding Hood left through the wooden gate and entered the forest. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, and birds sang happily. She walked cheerfully, thinking about the surprise she would bring to Grandma. From time to time, she bent down to look at colorful flowers and butterflies dancing in the air. Suddenly, a large wolf with gray fur appeared. He had a sly smile and sharp, shining eyes. "Well, well, what do we have here?" said the wolf. Such a pretty little girl, all alone in the forest. Little Red Riding Hood answered politely, "Hello, Mr. Wolf. I'm going to visit my grandma, who isn't feeling very well." The wolf thought to himself, "If I get to Grandma's house first, I'll have a feast." But pretending to be friendly, he said, "Why don't you take her a beautiful bouquet of flowers? There's a much nicer path that way." Little Red Riding Hood looked in the direction he pointed and saw beautiful, enchanting flowers. "What a lovely idea," she said. "I'll bring flowers to cheer up Grandma's day." While the girl got distracted picking flowers, the wolf hurried away down the shortcut. He knew the forest well and in just a few minutes reached Grandma's house. He knocked at the door and, using a sweet, high voice, pretended to be the little girl. "Grandma, it's me, Little Red Riding Hood." Grandma answered from inside, "Come in, my dear." The wolf leapt inside, put Grandma into the wardrobe and locked the door. Then he put on her nightgown and cap, lay down in bed, and pulled the blanket up to his chin, waiting patiently. A little while later, Little Red Riding Hood arrived. As she entered, she noticed Grandma's voice sounded strange. She walked closer to the bed and said, "Grandma, what big eyes you have!" "The better to see you with, my dear," replied the wolf in disguise. "Grandma, what big ears you have!" "The better to hear you with." "And what a big mouth you have!" "The better to eat you," growled the wolf, jumping out of bed. Little Red Riding Hood screamed and started running around the house, but the wolf was fast. The commotion made so much noise that a hunter who was passing by heard it and ran to the door. He came inside and saw the wolf about to grab the girl. With courage, he shouted, "Leave her alone, you beast!" Frightened, the wolf jumped out the window and ran into the forest, never to return. The hunter helped Little Red Riding Hood open the wardrobe and free Grandma, who came out and hugged her granddaughter tightly. "My dear, what a fright you gave me," said Grandma. "I promise I will never talk to strangers again," answered Little Red Riding Hood with tears in her eyes. Everyone then sat at the table and shared the cake and juice. The mood became cheerful again, and Grandma thanked her for the visit. Soon after, Little Red Riding Hood's mother arrived, relieved to see her daughter safe. And so, Little Red Riding Hood learned forever the importance of listening to the advice of those who love us. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a princess named Snow White. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips as red as a rose, and her hair as black as night. She was kind, sweet, and loved by everyone who knew her. But in the castle also lived her stepmother, the evil queen. The queen's heart was full of envy, and every day she asked the same question to her magic mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, is there anyone more beautiful than I?" And the mirror always answered, "Queen, you are fair, but the fairest of them all is Snow White." Hearing this, the queen's heart filled with hatred. She could not bear the thought that anyone might be more beautiful than her. One day, consumed by jealousy, the queen ordered a huntsman, "Take Snow White into the forest and make sure she never returns." The huntsman obeyed, but when the moment came, he didn't have the courage to harm the young princess. With compassion in his eyes, he said, "Run away, my princess! Go far, far away and never return to the castle." Frightened, Snow White ran through the dark forest. The trees seemed to have eyes, branches moved like arms, and strange sounds echoed all around. She trembled, but kept running. When the sun rose, Snow White finally found a charming place, a small cottage in the middle of the forest. Curious, she entered. Inside there were 7 little beds, 7 little chairs, and 7 little plates set on the table. Everything was tiny, as if made for children. Tired from her long journey, Snow White lay down on the little beds and soon fell asleep. That night, the owners of the house returned. They were 7 dwarfs who spent their days in the mines, digging for precious stones. When they saw the young woman sleeping, they were surprised. Who could this beautiful young lady be? She looks lost. When Snow White woke up, she told them her story, and the dwarfs, moved with compassion, decided to welcome her. "Stay with us, Snow White. We'll take care of you." And so she began living in the cottage, cooking, singing, and keeping the home with her new friends. The queen's envy, meanwhile, back at the castle, the queen asked her mirror again. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, is there anyone more beautiful than I?" And the mirror replied, "Queen, you are fair, but Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarfs in the forest, is the fairest of them all." Hearing this, the queen was furious. "So she's still alive! I'll take care of this myself." The queen, using her dark magic, transformed herself into an old peddler woman. She went to the cottage and offered Snow White a beautiful bodice. "Try it on, my dear. It will make you even lovelier." "Innocent," Snow White agreed, but the bodice was laced so tightly that she fainted. When the dwarfs arrived, they quickly understood what had happened. They cut the laces and saved the princess. When the queen discovered that Snow White was still alive, she disguised herself again. This time, she appeared as an old comb seller. "Look, young lady, this comb will make your hair even more beautiful." Snow White accepted the gift and combed her hair. Suddenly, she fell to the ground, enchanted. Fortunately, the dwarfs returned just in time and removed the comb from her hair. Snow White opened her eyes, but they warned her, "Do not open the door to anyone, princess. Your stepmother is dangerous." The queen, furious for having failed twice, prepared an even more powerful spell. She dipped a beautiful red apple into deadly poison. With this apple, she will sleep forever. Disguised as a peasant woman, she knocked at the cottage door. Snow White hesitated, but the queen insisted. "Take it, my dear. Just one bite, and you'll taste the sweetest flavor in the world." The young girl bit the apple and immediately fell into a deep sleep. This time, no matter what the dwarfs tried, nothing worked. Heartbroken, they placed her in a glass coffin in the forest so that her beauty would be remembered forever. Sometime later, a prince traveling through the land heard of the young maiden asleep in a glass coffin. Curious, he approached and, upon seeing her, was enchanted. It was as if he already knew her from his dreams. Overcome by pure and true feeling, he leaned down and kissed Snow White gently. At that very moment, the spell was broken. The princess opened her eyes and smiled. The dwarfs leapt with joy. "She's back! Snow White is back!" Grateful to the prince and the dwarfs, Snow White returned to the castle, now free from the queen's wickedness. She and the prince were married and lived happily for many years, always surrounded by love and friendship. And so ends the story of the princess with skin as white as snow, who found true friends in the 7 dwarfs and discovered that true love is stronger than any spell.